Hi, hello, how are you? One moment. Okay, so hello. This is a complicated topic, isn't it? So, are the gods real? No one can actually answer that question for you besides yourself. So, sorry. Spoiler alert. However, I think that you should not hold yourself to any one answer on it. And I think we shouldn't really hold ourselves to one answer on anything. Everything that we know should be subject to change at any time when we know more or learn more. We should never become rigid in any beliefs, be them spiritual, religious, or secular, or what have you. So, once you kind of accept for yourself in some form that maybe the gods are real, you can run into a lot of complications if you are not entering magic and greater paganism through Wicca. If you're coming in through Wicca, you've already pretty much established from the get go in every Wicca 101 class or video or book that all of the goddesses are the manifestation of one supreme goddess, right? And all of the gods across the entire world are manifestations of this one supreme god. So that's Wicca. However, um, most people who are in the magical community, especially now, I think, are really pulling away from Wicca or just wanting to see other avenues of magical practice uh, with spirituality or religion attached. And with that said, if you're not subscribing to that belief from Wicca, then, and you can subscribe to many beliefs at one time, by the way, that seem contradictory, but you may be wondering, how is it possible that Freya, for example, exists, but then so does Athena and Artemis? Or, like, how does Artemis and Diana, how do they exist? Are they the same deity, or are they two separate deities that were lumped together? And if they are two separate deities, how does that work? If Poseidon is the god of the ocean, what does that mean for Menon? How is he the god of the ocean? How is Lear the god of the ocean? Yamaya, or Yamanya, she's the spirit of the water. But what does that mean for, you know, XYZ? Like, I mean, you can keep on going. Like, if Zeus is the king of the gods, what about Dagda? Or, what is this? If Thor exists and he's the god of thunder, what about Shango? And you can just keep going and going. And, there's so many answers for this. And one we'll start with is that the gods aren't real. So maybe the gods are not real. And they are actual, just like fairy tale characters um, that just serve to teach us lessons. They're just parables. They're walking parables that teach us lessons about our own humanity and how to live life, right? Also, maybe they are just stories that helped explain things before we had a greater understanding as we do today. Our ancestors did not necessarily have the answers that we have now about science and about like the atoms and molecules and what the universe looks like. Like they didn't really necessarily know what went on outside of the planet Earth. They didn't even know probably what the planet Earth even looked like. That this was a planet and what is a planet and all of that. So a lot of those myths, certainly, I think it's not even arguable. A lot of those myths are from around the world are just answers to scientific inquiries. Okay? Some of them are just parables to make us better people, to scare us into submission, or to inform us and enlighten us, to help us make decisions and how to be better people. Okay? So, definitely the pagan gods exist for those reasons. fictitiously. However, now let's assume that the gods are real and that they are either physical, real beings just like me and you that exist somewhere out there or here. We can believe that. Or we can believe that they are just spirits, right? That they are like very old or powerful spirits, and that the ranking of God signifies someone's power level or age or wisdom. Um, you can look at it that way, that they are like ascended masters, like they're these like old, very wise spirits. You can look at it that way. And also you can believe that they are the supreme deity that is in control of the forces of existence and nature. And that they are still not in physical form, though. That they have this ethereal form. You can believe that too. But again, if you believe that they exist in whatever way, how do they all exist? So you don't have to believe that they all exist. You could definitely be a little pompous and believe that only certain pantheons exist. That's perfectly up. I mean, that's it's up to you. It's up to you. You can believe that, and that's perfectly fine. Or you can just stay within a pantheon and work with them and not worry about any of this. But if we're going to accept that all the world's pantheons exist as some kind of spiritual beings, then we have to, reconcile that somehow. And you can believe that gods exist just for certain peoples. So you can believe that the Celtic deities exist just for those Celtic beings and people. But then that's where we run into a little bit of racism, where suddenly, if that's the case, like, oh, the Tuatha only exist for the Irish people. So if you're not Irish, you can't work with them, or they don't protect you, or they have no guidance for you. That's where you run into a little bit of a problem with that train of thought. But you certainly could think that there's a lot of gods. Some of them have overlapping skills and qualities, just like people. So there are a ton of gods of war. And maybe wherever these gods live, certain gods or families of gods did come down to certain people. And they're like, we're going to help you. That's perfectly plausible. Or we could go a little bit along the Wiccan route, but in the context I'm speaking, we could go with a Hinduism route of the gods, and it really simplifies everything. And that is the idea of this God Force. I called it the God Force as a teenager. I was trying to rectify my own beliefs, and I had come up with all these terms that I later realized were already kind of figured out by other people in paganism, in Wicca, and within Hinduism. So that was wonderful. But you can believe in this God Force, this supreme energy, right? And so in Hinduism, that is called Brahman. Brahman. And Brahman is not a god, per se. Brahman is like the fifth element, right? The element on the pentacle, that fifth element, spirit, ether, akasha, prana, mana. There's a lot of names for it, right? Basically, that is what Brahman is. It is just this energy that permeates all things in existence. From a lamp all the way to a human, to the most complex things, the most simple things, all have Brahman in it, right? And are of Brahman. But Brahman, we're just finite little humans who can't process the vastness of the universe. We have to break it down and to label things, right? And Brahman understands this. So Brahman forms itself into entities or deities to help us connect to ourselves and to the source, and to help us navigate this life. And that would be like Brahma and, Vishnu and Shiva. And, I mean, it goes on and on and on, all of their deities. However, within Hinduism, there is a big belief that, like, all gods come from this, and that Brahman will shape itself to however it can to reach you. So, with that said, Ares, Tyrannus, Minerva, excuse me, really Athena, Shango, like all these war deities, suddenly all essentially come from the same source. So in a sense, that links all deities as siblings or as the same being or beings. So, maybe each archetype of a deity exists as its own as well, right? Maybe there is this unknowable, genderless warrior entity, healer entity. You can think that too. But it's very simple to boil it all down to this one energy, this omnipotent energy that branches off into so many different types of entities to reach you and to reach our ancestors. So our ancestors received the lessons, the teachings, the wonders of magic of the gods through, for example, speaking for me and my ancestry, through like the Morrigan, through the Dagda, through those entities, because that's how they were able to perceive that energy, which would be as something that looked very similar to them and sounded like them. That's how you receive the message. In Africa, the same way. The energy is formed in a way that is easy for you to digest. So you see beings like Yamanya or Oya. I love Oya. And Oya comes down and is the wind and is the storm and is fierce and, do you understand what I'm saying here? I think so. So, yes, perhaps all deities come from a supreme energy that either forms itself to interact with us, or you form the energy and perceive it in your own way. And if you accept that, then all gods are valid. All gods are real. And that really goes along back with what I said before with this atheistic agnostic approach, where you can then, all things become true. There are no wrong answers. And that's what I love about Hinduism as well. But all things can be true. Nothing is mutually exclusive. The gods can be real, they cannot be real. Because they can be just thought forms that we created and nothing more. Or they can be thought forms that we created that are real energies and entities. It's all correct. There's no wrong answers. And that's what I think is beautiful, and that's what I accept as the truth, is that everything is true. The gods are real. The gods aren't real. It's all true. And ultimately, none of it matters. Because what matters is that we are getting through this life sane and happy and doing good and trying to make the little world that we live in better around us in the scheme of this greater world. That's all that we can do as individuals. I can't save the whole planet. And why would I try? I can't save my entire town. Why would I try? But I can make a difference with every person that I come in contact with and every single thing that enters my sphere of influence. If it's outside of my sphere of influence, I'm not going to worry about it. Do you see what I mean? So anywho, that's a little dilly-dally about the gods and whether or not they truly exist and how they could all exist in harmony. Again, maybe they all are real and separate in their own solid forms, and they just all exist together. Maybe Ares does exist, and he exists aside from a god like Shango. And they are just gods that have some overlapping qualities, and that's it. There are tons of people on the planet, like you and I. There's so many of us that you couldn't help but there be. So maybe that's the way. Maybe that's it. Or maybe, like us, we all came from something. Something before this Big Bang, before whatever. We all come from this energy, and we all return to it when we die. Eventually, we become literally a part of the planet Earth again. Like the dirt. So why doesn't that apply to the gods? Boil them down. Where do they come from? What are they made of? Anywho, deep questions and no finite answers. But again, that's the beauty of it. So anywho, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow my link tree down below where you can follow me on all other social media platforms. You can check out my Facebook page where you can look at my services and book an astrology session with me where I read your birth chart for you. You can book a magical guidance session where I help you set up a magical practice, an altar. I can teach you how to make potions or spells or anything like that. And you can also just book readings with me. If you want a tarot reading, I'll give you a tarot reading, or an Ogham reading, a rune reading, oracle readings. I'll do anything. So go over there and look at my services. All my pricing is there. You can always shoot me a message over there, or DM me on Twitter or Instagram, or comment on a post. Get in contact with me. Anywho, thank you so much. And don't forget, you can also check out my t-shirts and hoodies and things like that over on my Teespring, which is also in my link tree. Thank you so much, and goodbye.